All right, guys, welcome to the last part class. Excuse me, I just had something with chili in it. It's a little spicy. Just had dinner. So this is it. This is the last lecture I'm giving you for Unit 6 and for class. So I will say this now. It's been a pleasure being your professor. It's been fun. I hope you guys learned something and take away some knowledge with you that made you go like, oh, that was fun. I actually learned something. It wasn't too bad. So in the future, you guys need a letter of rec. Want me to check your resume out for you? Feel free to email me and ask me. I'll help you. It's not that big of a deal. The other thing, the Discord server, I probably mentioned it in Unit 4 or 5. Not kicking anybody out. You guys are free to stay there and mingle all you want. Bug me whenever you want. Again, that's what I'm here for. So, without further ado, let's get into the second part of Unit 6. Best practices in virtualization, directory services, and system administration. So I'm going to break it up. I'm talking about virtualization and directory services, and then system administration in terms of best practices. So each thing will be a section roughly. So the first thing I got to show you is what's called, we've seen this, the overview. Here's what I'm going to be covering in here. Documentation and change management. What do you write things down? What's change management all about? Excuse me. Change tickets are managed by the people having the profiles, administrators. I should say administrator in there. Sorry, God, that chili ad's kicking my butt. Change implementers plan and implement the changes, like director of security, director of information technology. They plan, implement those kind of changes. That's what they're there for. I'm going to fix the profile thing before I upload it. I promise. If I don't, call me out on it. Change the always follow up with the changes, like make sure it's implemented, make sure it went through. Change manager approves the changes. So go on here. So what does that look like? What does IT change management process look like? Here is literally the chart of what it goes like. You get a change request. The change request is reviewed. Go like, okay, I think we can make that happen. You plan the change. Let's say you're going to be taking a building down. You're taking down, make up building, Q building. You have 3 months to figure out what to route from it, because on the network side of things, you have the R building and T building networked through Q building. Well, Q building is not going to exist. So now you have to figure out how to disconnect from Q and migrate those connections to, let's say, M building, so they still have network access. So that's what you would change plan. You're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Okay, we'll figure it out this way. We'll run the lines this way, and then we'll do it. The change is approved. Then you plan it for a weekend when nobody's there. Disconnect from our building, migrate over, implement the change, review the change, make sure you test it, make sure it worked, close the change out. So when a change like this happens, it comes in the form of what's called a help desk ticket. This is what I have from work. I just took a picture of like the other day. I had helped somebody with an issue they were having with Outlook. But documentation and change management, a change ticket or simply a change keeps track of modifications planned in IT. Patch install, system configuration changes, OS updates, software installations, also infrastructure updates. That's why I mentioned networking, because networking is all over the place, right? You got cables everywhere running from building to building, big, thick cables, not like little wimpy cables I'm talking about. This way, you can track all modifications made in your infrastructure technology IT. A lot of incidents are due to changes made in the IT environment. By documenting them, you can identify easily what changes had been made when an incident occurs and restore the service more quickly. So you'll have a rolling record of this. This will be saved somewhere on the back end in an archive. Like, oh, we did this on this date. Remember, it was planned on this time. You search it, pull this up, excuse me, and then you would have all that in there. Saying, oh, this is what we did. Let's check it out. You know where to start. So change implementation isn't too hard in the sense of how it works and what it does. Let's talk about shifting gears into it, or jumping away into virtualization security best practices. So there's a need for virtualization security, right? I've mentioned it prior. I've talked about it a little bit more. Well, here's the reasons why. Protection of sensitive data. Sensitive information, including financial, personal, and sexual property, is frequently processed and stored in virtualized settings. In order to safeguard sensitive data from illegal access, theft, tampering, the virtual machine must be secured. Ensure system stability. A security flaw in the virtual machine could jeopardize the stability of the entire virtualized environment and result in a significant disruption of company operations. Compliance. To protect sensitive data, firms, companies, enterprises, whatever you want to call it, must establish strong security measures in accordance with many industry requirements and standards. There could be financial penalties and non-compliance if the virtual machine is not secured. Let me segue out of that for a second and give you an example. It wasn't a virtual machine. This is when I worked at a for-profit university like 6 years ago. We had one physical server for the dental student area that just held patient information. So it's just one server for one task, right? One SQL database. And they have these laws called HIPAA laws. They're Health Protection Privacy Act law, privacy law. So, data has to be stored a certain way. It has to be on the cloud secured, or on premise is what we had, and it was stored in the server. And the server, in order to be backed up, need to be cloud backup and secure connection backup. So I had a VPN in and all that. Well, I wasn't in charge of the server in the sense of backing up. I was just in charge of making sure it worked. Okay, cool. That's not that hard. Backups were my thing. That was the networking guy's job. So one day we go to the back and we hear a beeping. We're like, oh, what's that beeping? That's weird. The storage area server is beeping. That's never beeps. So go check on it. So the server hard drive light is blinking, flashing red. Red means stop at a stoplight. Red on the server means you're in trouble. Your hard drive just died when it's blinking. You're like, oh, crud. Okay, well, we should have a backup. Well, we didn't. Because of HIPAA laws. HIPAA laws state, remember I said they had to be cloud-based? Our company wanted to, no, you got to do it on this portable USB backup hard drive. We're like, no, it's HIPAA law. They never listened. Network guy tried to blame me, but my boss at the time stepped in and said, no, it was your job. You should have done it the right way, blah, blah, blah. And moral of the story short is they got in trouble financially because they broke HIPAA law almost, and they didn't have a backup, so that was on them. But the same thing would apply to virtual machines. So I'm just trying to show you, make a link to what it happens, why you need to do that. So that was a big disruption for like 3 weeks. Anyways, compliance. To protect sensitive data, firms will establish strong security measures in accordance with many industry requirements and standards. There could be financial penalties, which I just talked about. So I already mentioned this. So yeah, they were in trouble. Reputation protection. A security breach may cause harm to an organization's standing and decrease client confidence. Like, remember when Sony, after Professor Sellies talked about it, you worked at Sony when they had the big Sony hack. How many people lost confidence in Sony after that for a while? A good amount of people. That's what that's referencing. And that's actually the only really good example I can think of a company that went like, holy crap, we really messed up on this one. So preventing malicious attacks. To steal data, interfere with corporate process, or spread malware, attackers frequently target virtualized environments. It's crucial to protect the virtual machine from these destructive attacks. This is very similar to what I talked about in Unit 1. So you're going to see a lot of parallels, I hope, in this. So virtual machine security. Virtual machine security refers to measures taken to protect the virtual machine and the VMs it manages from potential security threats. Below are some key aspects of virtual machine security. Access control. You already mentioned this before. The virtual machine and its configuration parameters should only be accessible to authorized users. Through systems for authentication and authorization, access should be limited. Remember, AD, we had a limit who sees what, who does what. Always use like a lunch lady as an example, or some other department, but you get the gist of it. Isolation of virtual machines. Yes, I mentioned this prior. The virtual machine should make sure that virtual machines are kept apart from one another, and that their operations do not compromise the security and stability of other virtual machines, the virtual machine, or both. The host virtual machines, what does it say? I might add to that. Threat detection and mitigation. The virtual machine must include security tools that can quickly identify and address problems, threats, for instance, firewalls, antivirus programs, and intrusion detection systems, IDS. Patch management. To keep the virtual machine secure and stop vulnerabilities from being exploited, regular software upgrades and patches are essential. Data encryption. You've heard me mention this before. To prevent theft and illegal access, sensitive data stored within VMs should be encrypted. Moving on. So, best practices for virtualization security. Mitigate Spectre and Meltdown. These flaws in current computer processors can be used to get access to confidential data. Organizations should install software updates, set operating systems and programs to only execute secure processor instructions and restrict exchange and sensitive data between virtual environments to lessen the impact of these risks. Yeah, I think, was it Spectre that randomly got patched by Intel through a Microsoft patch they issued? I know Meltdown's the AMD one. I don't know if that's patched yet, but that's what's called the zero-day vulnerability. They just discovered it, I think, maybe a year or 6 months ago. I've read about it. So patch hypervisors regularly hosts to fix known flaws and fend against potential threats. The hypervisor must be patched and updated on a regular basis. Limit access to hypervisor host management, HHM. Only authorized individuals should have access to the hypervisor host management. To prevent unwanted access, organizations should have strong authentication measures in place, such as multi-factor authentication. Audit access to hypervisor host. Organizations should routinely audit access to host. Organizations should routinely audit access to hypervisor hosts. That is a mouthful, guys. Keeping an eye out for unauthorized or unsuccessful or unusual access attempts. Limiting network access to hypervisor host management. Only secure networks should have access to the hypervisor host management, which should be segregated from open networks, like public networks, guest networks. To ensure network access limits, organizations should Utilize firewalls and other network security tools like you would be in its own virtual line. Hint, hint. Use virtual machine encryption. Even if the virtual machine is compromised, encryption can stop unauthorized access to critical data. Use UEFI Secure Boot Manager. So that's a different form of boot manager now. Back in the day, we used it called Legacy. I'm just telling you what it is, where you would set, boot to USB or boot to network first, and then check the hard drive, or boot to the USB, image from the USB, then boot to hard drive, things like that. So UEFI Secure Boot can help to prevent the execution of malicious programs during the boot process. Utilizing UEFI Secure Boot will assist organizations to protect against malicious attacks and preserve the integrity of the hypervisor. Use virtualization-based security, VBS. VBS is a feature that protects virtual machines at the hardware level, assisting in preventing attackers from infiltrating the hypervisor or gaining access to confidential information. To increase the security of the virtualized environment, organizations should deploy VBS. I almost said vulnerable there. Sorry, guys. So I'm laughing because I'm a moron. There's only 30 slides roughly, so we'll get through it. So, directory security best practices. So we're going to 80 now. We're shifting away. Maintain a minimum number of privileged users, so only admins. Only your team has admin rights. There's no local admin built into the server. There would only be your network admin accounts, for example. But on host machines like Office PC, yeah, you can have local admins. You can't really do much with it. All right. If compromised, these accounts enable attackers to gain a large foothold in your environment. Managing privileged users can be time-consuming. Large enterprises might have hundreds of accounts in privileged groups. So, still talking about directory here, okay? Use groups to assign privileges. Leveraging groups simplifies the process of doling out permissions to users. Rather than managing permissions individually, which can lead to errors, organize users into groups and then assign appropriate permissions to those groups. You've seen this before. A collection of users can request a business unit or an internal team in which users have identical needs regarding access rights. Determining who should belong to each group, which rights these groups should have, require communication between the team managing AD, Active Directory, and business stakeholders. So like the boss will tell you, I need access to this or that. Okay, cool, you get it. Who else do you think will need it? Okay, we put them in the same group and there you go, blanket access for these people that need it. Not blanket as a whole, but specific access to these things. I say blanket as in for the group, like these people have access to this area. I'm kind of referencing. Still talking about directory, guys. We're going to talk about directory for a bit. So, secure accounts with administrator privileges. When a domain is created in an Active Directory, the local administrator account becomes the administrator domain account, and a default number of domain admins. There should be a semicolon there. And administrator groups. If the domain is the forest root domain, the account also becomes a member of the enterprise admins group. That's kind of scary. Forgot about that. To protect this account, Microsoft recommends saying the account is sensitive and cannot be delegated flag. Also verify that group policy objects, GPOs, are configured to restrict the use of domain administrators and built-in administrator accounts on domain joint systems. Specifically block these accounts from the following: accessing member services and workstations, logging on as a batch job, logging on as a service, accessing member services or servers and workstations using RDS, remote desktop service. So, still talking about directory. I know AD is a big part of this, guys. I do apologize. This is more modern stuff, though. So, enforce modern password policies. See, modern. Stolen credentials are at the center of many successful enterprise attacks. Looking at UMGM hack, I've talked about this. In addition to, or Snowden, same thing. Believe it or not, he stole someone else's credentials. That's how he got all that stuff. But look into it if you're curious. I'm not going to go into it. In addition to using such credentials for initial access, threat actors can use the credentials to move laterally throughout the compromised environment. For this reason, password security is paramount. However, experience in large cloud service providers has shown that traditional password policies are inadequate against modern attacks. NIST, so look it up if you're curious, and other large organizations have updated their password policies to recognize this reality. Brute force attacks against internet-facing servers have waned. It's technically considered old school. They've been replaced by password spray attacks, in which well-known common passwords are attempted against many users in an organization. So, you hear about password leaks, the Yahoo leaks, all that. That's kind of what they're referencing in that, where they take user accounts and they know passwords and just put it into a database, and then they just throw a database at accounts and names until it locks someone in, logs somebody in, and then they have access. Such attacks are now common and often successful. Password spray attacks exploit user tendency to create passwords that are easy to remember and easy to guess. Password love, password cupcake 123, look at me, things like that. Or even QWERTY I've seen as a password. And I just shook my head and went like, why? Why would you do that? So, talking about passwords more, enforcing strong passwords on service accounts. Kerber roasting, it's new. Technically, is the most common way to compromise privileged accounts and gain control of Active Directory. Kerber roasting attacks have been on the rise, by some estimates increasing 500% since early 2022. In this technique, a threat actor begins to gain gaining regular user access through phishing or another method. With this access, the user can easily gain a list of service accounts by enumerating service principal names, SPNs, in Active Directory. And next, the attacker correlates these accounts with memberships in privileged groups to obtain a list of privileged service accounts. So in other words, they're just making a map and see what they can try to get. Threat actor then requests a Kerberos service ticket from one of these privileged accounts. So it could be like Pam from, I don't know. Think of something. Pam from accounting. I'm going to just pay accounting. Can you use password reset? Okay, it's weird, but sure. Then you reset it something that they would know, and then this ticket is encrypted with the service account's password hash, which the attacker can typically crack offline. Give me a second. Someone just messaged me on Discord. I quit Discord for a minute because I want to finish this, guys. So, with the cracked service account password hash, so I mentioned hashing prior, but I'm not going to get too much of it. The threat actor can quickly gain control of Active Directory. A successful Kerberos roasting attack can compromise an Active Directory forest in minutes. So there's only 30 slides, guys. 30 slides, we're almost there. So directory service practices continued. Conduct regular assessments to detect password policy violations. Regular reviews of password policies and settings can help to detect issues that can expose Active Directory to attack. For example, scrutinize any account with the password _not required flag set. So like a generic account, like a library login, like library user. Like, yeah, why would that have a password? Even library 123 is more secure than no password, guys, even if it takes like 10 minutes to break. In addition, examine accounts that are set to enable anonymous access to Active Directory, which allows unauthenticated users to query Active Directory. Restrict access to domain controllers. Organizations should restrict access to domain controllers to limit the threat of a DC domain controller being compromised by malware. No web browser should be allowed on, or web browsing, should be allowed on the domain controller to be its own server, right? GPOs linked to all DCs, not the comic book company, okay, sorry. Organizational units in the forest should be set only to permit remote desktop protocol connections from authorized users and systems. So like admin should only have rights to this, not like, again, Pam from accounting. I don't think needs to look up the domain controller. Directory security best practices. We're still going. Plan for Active Directory recovery. Establish a comprehensive, detailed Active Directory recovery plan. I apologize, the helicopter just flew over if you heard it. It is a crucial part of building cyber resilience. Organizations should back up at least 2 domain controllers per domain, including the root domain. These backups should be kept offline to prevent them from being infected by malware. So your backup. So if your main one goes down, take it offline, plug in your new one, and pray they don't get access to it either. Or just lock out the ports that face outside and only work internally for the bit. So you can isolate the external port. All right, let's get into system security. We're moving on from AD, guys. Keep software up to date. Software companies typically provide software updates for 3 reasons: to add new features, fix known bugs, and upgrade security. Looking at you, Windows 8, 7, you had updates like every Tuesday from what I remember. Always update to the latest version of your software to protect yourself from new or existing security vulnerabilities. Depending on where you work, like I said, you wouldn't roll out everything right away. You would test it before you deploy it, because you could break something. You don't want to break something because that's a bigger headache. So that's kind of yes, but also kind of no. I would say it just depends on the situation. So system security best practices continue. Avoid opening suspicious emails. Guys, I'm going to reiterate this. This sounds very mean. I don't mean to offend anybody. That's not the point of this, but this one is one of the most common sense things that people don't pay attention to. I'm not talking about you or anyone in general watching this. I'm just talking about people, like the big picture, like everybody in the world. Like my parents, thankfully, I'm not trying to put anyone on pedestal, but my dad knows, like, hey, I don't remember ever, winning a lottery ticket and getting an email accuse me about it. So he wouldn't open it. But something's like, oh, you've won this new juicer. Oh, I've wanted a juicer. Let me click on it. Congratulations, you're being fished, aka bamboozled, just, internet lingo. And it's like, yeah, if it looks too good to be true, guys, 9 times out of 10, it is. So if an email looks suspicious, you know what? Let me see if I have anything suspicious in my personal email. I don't care if you guys see my personal email. It's not going to break anything. Give me a second, because I want to see like what suspicious spam. Like I know I had one earlier today. I'm just going to give you an example of what it looks like. Don't worry. Yeah, there you go. Bingo. So something like this. Yeah, I don't. A Visa card that reports, but no, this is not real. I don't need this. And then you can check it if you go to reply. I don't care if you see my email. It's not going to get you anywhere. Where's the reply button on this bloody thing? Reply all. Yeah, that's Numera Shop. That's like a company that got broken into, and they took over the essentially the email portion of the domain and just spam it out of reply. So yeah, no, I wouldn't reply to this. It's garbage. But that's an example, guys. So anywho, I wouldn't open that. I'm just giving an example in spam because I'm not going to click on anything. You can open it and look at it as long as I don't click anything. It's not going to hurt me. Someone might be impersonating another individual or company to gain access to your personal information. Like I've seen a bunch of like, oh, Google's alerting you to this. I'm like, no, it isn't. I don't have a Google account with the specific email I use. So why would it tell me that? Things like that. Sometimes the emails may also include attachments or links that can affect your devices. Just kind of like in there was a link to click on it here to apply to this. It would just link me to some like random looking form that I'd fill out with all my info. And then next thing you know, I no longer have an identity as a person. They stole it, essentially. So that's a big thing. That's how they get people, unfortunately. So another one for systems here is use a secure file sharing solution to encrypt data. If you regularly share confidential information, you absolutely need to start using a secure file sharing solution. A regular email is not meant for exchanging sensitive documents because if emails are intercepted, man in the middle attack, unauthorized users will have access to your precious data. On the other hand, using a secure file sharing solution like Titanfile will automatically encrypt sensitive files so you don't have to worry about a data breach. Remember, your files are only as secure as the tool you choose to share them with. That's just one I remember. So I put Titanfile in there. So use an antivirus and anti-malware. You've seen this about virtual, and you've seen this probably about servers too. That's why it's common knowledge at this point, right, guys? As long as you're connected to the web, it's impossible to have complete and total protection from malware. Remember, you can't mitigate 100% of risk. That's common. However, you can significantly reduce your vulnerability by measuring. Sorry, you have an antivirus and at least one anti-malware installed on your computers. You see Malwarebytes probably one of the videos pop up with something to scan. Mine does both, and it's also a network security system. So I've had Malwarebytes for years. I trusted it with my life, and it saved my butt a couple times. So just an example. Use a VPN to privatize your connections. I don't really use a VPN. I don't need to. I'm not trying to obscure what I'm doing. I don't do anything illegal. It's just I'm not trying to say like I'm my family's narc or anything. Or no, it's not the point. It's like, well, I got nothing to hide here. I'm just teaching and recording stuff. I'm not doing anything crazy or Bitcoin mining or anything. Anyway, for a more secure and private network, use a virtual private network VPN. It'll encrypt your connection and protect your private information even from your internet service provider. ISP. So, still talking about system security. This also applies to server guys and even VMs because they're all systems, right? So this can kind of be seen like this is like whole enchilada. Don't be lazy with your passwords. Cupcake 123, look at me. Pour more effort into creating your passwords. Enable two-factor authentication. I personally have two-factor authentication enabled on almost everything, and it goes through my phone. And if it can't get to my phone, it's not allowed to go in, and I have to approve every session for anything. So, for example, I am logged into my Google Drive at work, so I can upload documents or work on things like for this class or write things up if I need to real quick. Like, oh, I remember this, I'll ask them later, or what have you. Every time I log in, it pops up my phone. Hey, you're trying to log in from this IP, and I know my IP of my work machine. So I'm like, yeah, it's me. Yes. Or if I didn't know, it won't allow them in. I've had it where like, oh, you trying to log in from Indiana? I was like, I don't know, man. I'm in California. Last time I checked, I didn't move to Indiana 10 days ago. So no, deny it. So things like that. But that all probably came through because my Yahoo password itself was leaked many moons ago, but I've changed it since to something obviously different, and it's still out there. When you upload something to the internet, it's out there forever at this point. So many platforms now allow you to enable two-factor authentication to keep your accounts more secure. It's a layer of protection that helps verify that it's actually you who is accessing your accounts and not someone who's unauthorized. Enable this security feature when you can. I recommend you do. It's not that big of a deal or pain to deal with. It's pretty simple, which is nice. On to slide 20, guys. We are almost there. About 10 more slides. Still talking about systems. Backup important data. Important data can be lost as a result of a security breach or the hard drive failure I had in my role 6 years ago. To make sure you're prepared to restore data, it kind of stinks. Once it's lost, you should ensure your important information is backed up frequently on the cloud or local storage device, depending on the rules that you have. Train employees. This is a big one still. The key to making cybersecurity work is to make sure your employees are well trained, in sync, and constantly exercising security practices. Sometimes one mistake from an improperly trained employee can cause an entire security system to crumble. You ever heard the phrase, armor is only as good as its weakest link. That's what it essentially means. So let's talk about capacity planning for virtual environments and platform services. So when it applies to virtual environments, applies to systems, it's also going to apply to cloud, which is platform services. So what exactly is capacity management? Well, let's start with some level setting definitions. According to Information Technology Infrastructure Library, ITIL, capacity management is the discipline that ensures IT infrastructure is used in the most effective, predictable, and cost-effective manner. Okay, makes sense. Effective capacity management ensures two things: efficiency, optimization of capacity, using every last bit of available capacity without impacting the business. It's a balancing act, essentially. Predictability, availability of capacity, ensuring capacity is available when always available and always on whenever the business needs it. So peak hours, right? Or, at night, I don't think you need 15 machines going, unless you're doing a big data backup. Capacity planning, virtual management, and performance platform service continue. Why capacity management is important. Whether your data center environment is physical, server, virtualized, or hybrid cloud, capacity management is an increasingly critical function in the IT organization today. Many companies are looking to implement a formalized capacity management model for 3 reasons. So those are the big 3 reasons. Save some dinero. I like saving money. Service availability, make sure everybody has what they need. And business planning. You got to plan for the future. If you onboard 50 people and you only have 5 machines, you got a problem. So capacity planning continued. Capacity management in physical versus virtualized worlds. In the physical world, capacity management is very straightforward and simple. Traditional capacity is project-driven based on the requirements of an individual line of business, LOB. In a one application per server model, the business owner knows exactly what capacity is available. It's very clear, delineated, and siloed. The server and all its capacity are owned by one user or application. Unfortunately, this resource silo leads to a fundamental dilemma, an explicit trade-off between efficiency and predictability. In the physical world, efficiency is usually achieved when you plan for the short term. Today, if you want to be highly effective, you just provision IT capacity to your highest peak. However, you will encounter risk when capacity demand spikes unexpectedly. So, continued. More about the physical versus virtualized world in terms of capacity management. Predictability is achieved when you plan for a long-term time horizon, tomorrow. If you try to mitigate any risk by over-provisioning, so you allocate too much, you will have unnecessary waste. This spare capacity represents capacity into which you can grow. Unfortunately, the physical world too often requires optimizing for one goal or the other. You can't do both. Predictability or efficiency. If an environment is fully efficient, it lacks the spare capacity needed to be entirely predictable. Adding additional capacity, which is the common response, may ensure predictability, but it results in inefficiency or waste. If you have 20 machines and you have 4 users, what are you doing with those 16 machines, right? Or even 2 if you're only using 2. What are you doing with those 18 machines? That's kind of the problem. Virtualization forces companies, capacity planning, purchasing, and provisioning decisions to be driven top-down in the context of an aggregated resource pool. Virtualization allows your capacity to be shared and adapted to fundamental benefits of virtualization. Sharing allows capacity to behave as a communal pool, so one big pot of resources for both used and spare capacity. Adaptability allows capacity to expand and contract on an as-needed basis. If an application or a VM needs more resources, then it can be borrowed from another VM that may not need as much. Further, adaptability and flexibility allow adding computers, it's just a computer, not compute, storage and network capacity in granular increments. Compute sounds fancy in French, but that's not the point. For example, when a server is added to a resource pool, its capacity becomes communal property, not owned by any particular application or even business unit. Let me pause this for a second and be right back. All right, guys, let's keep going. So, capacity planning for virtualized environments and platform services, new requirements and challenges in virtual environments. Although capacity management can be fundamentally improved for virtualization, there are new challenges, risks, and opportunities in managing capacity in a virtual environment. The impact of any demand fluctuation in a shared environment is felt far and wide by all business units and applications in the cluster. For example, poorly managed capacity can cause a huge ripple effect. Massive slowdowns, crashes, all crashes and burns, and you're like, oh boy, I didn't plan that right. So, I'm still talking about virtualization environments and platform services, right? And capacity planning. This is what this is all about, guys. It's mostly a lot of thought and theory crafting, but it all really does apply is the point of it. Like you'll see this, you'll implement this stuff, but not in the sense of let me write a rule about this and hand it to them. No, this is more like, okay, I have to remember, I have to have enough space for this. I have to provision enough for these people. I have to make sure all of resources are available for XYZ reasons, things like that. So 5 examples of new requirements and challenges in a virtual environment include virtualization introduces new considerations such as VM mobility and automated restart or failover, which have important capacity implications. Capacity fragmentation and overallocation, if not managed, can grow into significant waste across thousands of virtual machines, hosts, and storage. Resource bottlenecks need to be identified at the granular level, so like down to like the machine, and can be made worse by adding more of a given resource, such as CPU or storage, when you don't need it. So, for example, those of you that I'm not picking on you, I'm just using you an example, okay, that don't have such powerful machines, don't have like a quad core, and you gave it like 2 cores, and you're launching server with half of your RAM, you notice it's struggling. That's what it's talking about. So I'm not picking on you guys. Just again, you're a good example of that. That's all. But it happens, right? Over allocation, VMs represent waste capacity, which can be identified and reclaimed. Poor VM placement can decrease utilization and cause resource contention, like struggling for resources, fighting for it. It's almost like starvation, I guess. That'd be a better word, but I'm not going to get too far into that. So, capacity management approaches. Rule of thumb. This is probably the best one. Rule of thumb involves guesstimates based on past experience. I'm going like, how many would I need? For example, in the past, 4 VMs can generally run on 1 core. So going forward, the same assumption is used. Obviously, there are serious drawbacks to this approach in a dynamic environment. The dynamic means constantly changing, including inaccuracy and the inability to establish a systematic process around this approach. So the reason I say rule of thumb is pretty good is because if you're not a big organization and you need to virtualize a few things, rule of thumb, cool, works great. If you're working like somewhere like, I think what like place that's always in motion, always like Tesla, they're always hiring people, letting go of people, or changing things around. Rule of thumb wouldn't work for you. I guarantee it. So there's more to capacity management, which I'll talk about right now. In the next 2 slides, I believe covered. Homegrown solutions. Homegrown solutions include scripts and spreadsheets. This is a more systematic approach than rule of thumb. And in the case of scripts, scripting is when you like make a program, as such a light program that has to run like a launch, or you run the script to generate things. It may work in larger enterprises with sophisticated IT skills. However, this approach can quickly become expensive and time-consuming. And a lot of IT admins work this way, believe it or not. Me, I'm somewhere between both. To maintain it may also be inaccurate, especially when a rapidly changing infrastructure, looking at you, Tesla, and a virtual environment, there are many intricacies in how VMs interact with the layer of infrastructure. So it's hard to do this right with a great amount of expertise. You can learn to do this right doing it this way, but it's very expensive. It's a very unique skill set to have. And then the most common one, purpose-built tools. That's the one I personally use more, along with a little bit of homegrown bashing or scripting here and there, just to log in specific profiles only on these computers, things like that. Sometimes we can't set the rules for GPO because it causes a conflict with some legacy issues that we have. Our Active Directory work is nuts. It's ancient. But anywho, purpose-built tools. Purpose-built tools are the perfect approach for virtual environments because they take the guesswork and much of the labor, hint, hint, out of collecting and maintaining capacity information in a constant changing environment. Perhaps most importantly, tools that are closely integrated with and aware of the virtualization layer can provide highly reliable and real-time intelligence. With the right tools and processes in place, IT administrators will have automated real-time capacity intelligence to make day-to-day and strategic capacity management decisions in a virtual environment. So guys, here's the overview for the second part of Unit 6. What did we cover? Documentation and change migration. Pretty straightforward. Virtualization, directory, and system security best practices. I touched on all that. And capacity planning for virtualized environments and platform services. They go hand in hand because, believe it or not, a lot of clouds virtualized too. So, yeah, there you go. So this is it, guys. This is the end of class. Hopefully you're taking your final after this, and it isn't too bad. It's due Friday, the 15th of December by midnight. I cannot extend it as much as I wish I could. I am only allowed to put up to the 15th because if I do the 17th, like Sunday, for example, it says it is not within the range of the semester. Sorry, my brain's kind of fried a little bit there. Can't remember it. So, guys, it's been a pleasure. Take care. Good luck on the final. And if you have me for any other classes, I will see you in them. If not, like I said, take care and have yourselves a good one. See you around.